There is nothing remarkable about this hill. Wind, dust, and a few sparse shrubs. But if we could catch the echoes stored within these stones, we would hear something else entirely. We would hear the creaking of thousands of ship keels emerging from the fog. We would hear not battle cries, but the monotonous knocking of hammers erecting a stockade, and distant commands in a language that has been dead for 2,500 years. Today we will talk about the fall of Troy. But we will not rush. We will not shout about the Trojan horse and the blazing city. Instead, we will slowly, step by step, walk through all 10 years of that siege. We will look at it not through the eyes of heroes, but through the eyes of a quartermaster counting supplies, a soldier mending his sandal, and through the eyes of the city itself, which simply wanted to survive another season. This is a story about how routine and patience can be more terrifying than any battle. Let's begin. Legend says the war began because of the abduction of the beautiful Helen. It is a beautiful story, but reality, as always, is more prosaic. Troy, or Ilium, as its inhabitants called it, was not just a city. It was the key to the straits leading to the Pontus Euxinus, the Black Sea. Through these straits, trade routes ran, carrying grain, metals, and slaves to the Aegean. The Achaean kingdoms, led by Mycenaean king Agamemnon, were not a band of romantics avenging a brother's honor. This was a strategic alliance. Putting together such an alliance was a titanic task. Imagine, you must persuade a dozen proud and independent basileus, each with his own army, ships, and ambitions, to go on a campaign to the other end of their known world. The logistics were a nightmare. By estimates, just to feed an army of 10,000 men required about 20 tons of grain and tens of thousands of liters of water per day. And also horses, donkeys, spare parts for chariots, leather, bronze, wood for ship repairs. Supplying such an armada was more difficult than any battle. The ships, mostly sail and oar galleys, were unreliable. They could not long remain at sea during the stormy season, which lasted from September to May. Effectively, campaigns were conducted only a few months a year. The rest of the time was spent in camp, dealing with disease and the endless search for provisions. So, the fleet arrived. It landed. There was an initial, likely unsuccessful for the Achaeans, skirmish on the beach. And then the main event began, the siege. We often imagine armies storming walls, but Troy was impregnable. Its walls, built according to legend by Poseidon himself, were too high and strong. There were no battering rams or siege towers in the form known to later eras. The siege was a stalemate. What did the Greeks do all those years? They did not sit in trenches. They lived. They built temporary shelters from ship sails and logs. They hunted in the surrounding forests, which were quickly depleted. They raided neighboring cities to procure provisions and slaves. Remember, Achilles went to Lyrnessus, to Pedasos. This was not a heroic epic, but a brutal necessity. Disease was rampant in the camp. Poor sanitation, meager rations, insects, all these killed more warriors than Trojan arrows. Archaeologists find evidence of mass graves in this region. Boredom was another enemy. Warriors played dice, told stories, quarreled over loot. The famous quarrel between Achilles and Agamemnon is, in essence, a conflict over the distribution of extremely limited resources. In this case, a slave girl. And the Trojans? They were not locked in the city like in a cage. Their fields were ravaged. but they had allies in the interior of Asia Minor, from where aid could come. Life in the city went on, albeit under constant threat. Artisans worked, children played in the streets, priests made sacrifices to the gods. They grew accustomed to the war as a backdrop to their existence. The 10th year of the war. Everyone was tired, and it was then that individuals, not masses of warriors, came to the fore. Achilles, the greatest fighter of the Achaeans, withdraws from battle. His anger is not just a whim, it is a crisis of power legitimacy. Agamemnon, the supreme commander, violates the unwritten code by taking away his military prize. The army is divided. The Trojans, sensing weakness, undertake the most serious attempt of the entire war. They take to the field and attack the camp itself. The battle reaches the very ships. This is the climax. Patroclus, Achilles' friend, puts on his armor to inspire the Achaeans. He dies, and here the cold, calculated war gives way to personal vengeance. The return of Achilles to the battlefield is not a turning point in the war. It is a bloody resolution. He crushes the Trojans, drives them back to the city, kills Hector. But it is important to understand, even after this, Troy did not fall. The walls still stood. Achilles himself perishes, from an arrow to his only vulnerable spot. Legend speaks of a heel, but it is more likely the arrow struck an unprotected area behind the knee or the neck. The death of the hero at the hands of the obscure Paris is another reminder of the prosaic cruelty of war. And so the Achaeans realize the city cannot be taken by force. Ever. Cunning is needed. The idea of Odysseus is brilliant not for its scale, but for its understanding of human psychology. The Trojan horse is not just a huge statue. It is a complex psychological and sabotage operation. Imagine, after 10 years of exhausting war, the enemy suddenly vanishes. You see an empty shore where life was bustling just yesterday. The first feeling is relief. But then you see this horse, enormous, mysterious, made of the finest wood, an inscription on its side. In gratitude for a future safe return home, the Achaeans dedicate this gift to Athena. A debate erupts. Some, like Laocoon, shout about a trick. Others, like the priest bribed by the Greeks, see it as a religious symbol. But the key element is disinformation. The Greeks leave behind Sinon, a defector, who, under torture, tells a plausible story. The horse was made so large so that the Trojans could not bring it into the city, for that would bring them Athena's patronage. This is a play on vanity and superstition. To bring the horse into the city is not only to receive a gift from the gods, but also to symbolically defeat the Achaeans by capturing their dedication. The Trojans themselves tear down a part of their own wall to drag the Trojan horse inside. With their own hands, they destroy their primary defense, night. A city that has not seen a celebration in 10 years becomes drunk with a sense of liberation. Sentries on the walls are relaxed, and then the hatch in the belly of the horse quietly opens. We will not show bright battle scenes. Instead, we will convey it through sound and detail. Groups of well-armed and rested warriors emerging from the horse silently kill the guards at the main gates and open them. The main force of the Achaeans, who had not sailed away but merely hidden behind a nearby island, return in silence and pour into the city. What begins is not a battle, but a massacre. Drunk, sleepy, unprepared Trojans die without even reaching for their weapons. The streets, which for 10 years were a safe place, become a death trap. Archaeology confirms the brutality of the finale. The layer corresponding to this period, Troy 7A, bears clear signs of catastrophe: fire, skeletons with signs of violence, finds of arrowheads in the lower city. This was not a heroic assault. It was a methodical rout. King Priam is killed at the altar in his own palace, a violation of all sacred laws. The men are slaughtered. The women and children are taken away into slavery. The Achaeans, who had spent 10 years of their lives on this endeavor, were not in a merciful mood. This was payback. 10 years of hunger, disease, and boredom erupted into one night of absolute, unrestrained cruelty. By morning, all that remained of great Troy were smoldering ruins and crowds of captives. The Achaeans loaded the loot onto their ships and set off for home. But their return, as we know from other tales, was no less tragic. Agamemnon would be killed by his own wife. Odysseus would wander for 10 years. Menelaus would get lost at sea. The fall of Troy was not the end of the story. It was merely the end of a long, exhausting, and terribly expensive enterprise. It did not bring untold wealth to the impoverished Achaean kingdoms. It drained them. And soon after this, the Mycenaean civilization itself would collapse under the pressure of the Dorians and internal crises. So what do we see looking at this hill? We see a monument not to heroism, but to human stubbornness, greed, and the monstrous price all sides paid for a decade-long stalemate resolved in one bloody night. The story of Troy is not a story of victory. It is a story of a Pyrrhic victory, occurring centuries before the term itself was coined. Thank you for joining us on this slow journey.